Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here reporting for wearechange.org, and today we're going to take an in-depth look at a character that has been really shrouded in mystery over the last decade plus when it comes to his actions and crimes and why he got off so easily. And this person is Jeffrey Epstein. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Epstein, he is the person that is behind the so-called Lolita Express, the pedophile island, or Lolita Island in the Virgin Islands, where he was trafficking in young girls, as well as his locations in Palm Beach, Florida, and in New York, New York. Now, there's really not a lot known about this guy. So I wanted to do my own little investigation. Where did he come from? How did he get his money? He's rumored to be worth billions. So who is Jeffrey Epstein, and how did he get his start? And how did he get such a sweetheart deal from both state prosecutors and federal prosecutors alike? So when I began to look into Epstein, I was kind of startled to find out that there was a nonfiction novel written about him entitled Filthy Rich. Now, what I found most fascinating is it was written by today's most prolific fiction author, somebody who's on the New York Times bestseller list all the time, James Patterson. I mean, James Patterson novels are everywhere. And it was really interesting that Patterson wrote this book. Essentially, he lived in the same Palm Beach neighborhood. He'd heard a lot of these rumors. He'd followed it in the local media. And he decided to get another author and another investigative journalist to come in and write this nonfiction novel on Epstein. So right away, this was great source material for me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It is the most in-depth expose on Epstein. What I found very odd was that this was getting like 2 to 3 stars in reviews in most places, where he gets 4 to 5 stars all the time. It seemed like a lot of people don't want you to read this book, and for good reason. It really goes in depth into Epstein and who he was before this scandal hit. So we're going to hit on some of those points. Now, the book shows that as he came up, he never really got any type of degrees, and he was really able to be a social climber through tutoring, it would seem. You see, he went to Cooper Union for college, did not get a degree there, then moved on to New York University, where he also did not get a degree. He was studying mathematics, I believe, and physiology. Somehow, and nobody can seem to answer this question, he ends up teaching at what is essentially a very rich boys' prep school, the Dalton School. This is where he starts to make his major connections. And that major connection is Ace Greenberg, who brings him into Bear Stearns. Now, he goes through Bear Stearns, he spends some time there, and he gets out during a very big SEC investigation. That's the Securities and Exchange Commission, during the early 80s. It's there where Epstein seems to transition himself. They focus on one major deal where he was able to recover invested money for a rather prominent aristocrat out in Spain. This hundreds of millions of dollars that had been invested in something where they didn't think they were going to get their money back. Epstein then gets that money back, and all of a sudden he has a portion of it. Now, that's only hundreds of millions of dollars, folks. Remember, Epstein is reportedly worth billions at this point. So he comes up through that, and apparently that's where he finds his calling. He's able to get people's money back. Another thing that's alluded to in this novel, Filthy Rich, is that he then moves into a position where he can help the wealthy hide their money in tax havens so that they are able to keep more and more of their money undetected from taxes, from payments. Lord knows, okay? But somehow Epstein has all this money. Now, on top of that, you look at past relationships Epstein has had with women of age, and they are severely loyal to Epstein. You know, it really seems like this man was able to talk to people and build relationships with them. They really ride or die with him, even with all these allegations, saying they feel so bad for Jeffrey. He was nothing but a gentleman to them. And, this is way before the allegations that take place in the early 2000s. Now, there's something else that I think is worth noting in this book. There's a section in the book where they're discussing how Epstein wouldn't really talk about what he did for a living. However, he did mention that he would work with governments. Now, this was often brushed off and may have possibly been a complete and total lie, because he lied about so much. And there are many examples in this book of things that he would lie about. However, we do know that he had a close relationship with Bill Clinton. His flight records, according to Fox News, had him on Epstein's jet at least 26 times by their logs alone. Now, that's a lot, folks, and let's be honest, it's probably much more than that. On top of that, Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, has now come out and said that Hillary Clinton herself has been to Pedophile Island or Orgy Island or whatever you want to call it, and had her own relationship with Epstein.
Including the fact that Hillary went to this sex island with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Clinton went there more than 20 times. Hillary Clinton went there at least 6 times. The amount of garbage that they found in these emails of criminal activity by Hillary, by her immediate circle, and even by other Democratic members of Congress was so disgusting. They gave it to the FBI, and they said, we're going to go public with this if you don't reopen the investigation and you don't do the right thing with timely indictments.
So is it that far off to believe that Epstein himself may have had some government connections? I don't think so. All right, so let's move on to the actual crimes that took place and the non-resolution of what actually happened in its aftermath, and where we are today with lawsuits because of this non-resolution. So Epstein was accused of having young girls come to his home and give him erotic massages and beyond.
She was the air hostess on board the notorious Lolita Express, the billionaire's private jet at the center of a sex scandal making lurid headlines across the world. Sleazy Wall Street tycoon Jeffrey Epstein used the Lolita Express to ferry a bevy of beautiful young women. Among the passengers, former President Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew.
In this book, you will read actual police interrogations of some of these young girls that were both molested by Epstein and then groomed to groom or procure other young girls. Now, the allegations have these girls as young as 12. The book gives prominence to one girl who is 14 years old, and one of the girls who is currently suing Epstein said she was doing this at 16 and 17 years old. Now, I won't go into the sort of details, they're out there, but the amount of evidence and the amount of Jane Does that came forward was overwhelming and astonishing. Dozens, folks, dozens on the record.
After years of silence, she's talking about the day she says Jeffrey Epstein paid her for a sensual massage. Jane says she was just a sophomore in high school, just 15 or 16 years old, when someone at her school told her how she could make some quick cash.
If you go to this guy's house for $200 and give him a massage for $200, basically it's an in and out thing. It's a massage, nothing bad about it.
Jane says she and a girl her age took a taxi to Epstein's house on Palm Beach. Jane says an assistant paid the driver and took them into an upstairs room. It had a massage table and a shower. And that's when Jane says Epstein walked in, completely naked.
He jumped in the shower and told me to remove my clothes down to my bra and my panties. We both were looking at each other like, what are we going to do now?
So what ends up happening? Well, Epstein himself starts to send investigators after his alleged victims. He also sends investigators after those people that are investigating him. Yes, that's right. He starts investigating the law enforcement officers that are bringing these allegations. So Epstein gets this unbelievable sweetheart deal where he serves 18 months. He only really goes to jail for 12 of those months, and most of those he's actually on work release. So he's spending the days in his office and he's going to jail. He had to plead guilty to one act of soliciting a prostitute and one act of soliciting an underage prostitute. So he is in fact a sex offender. Now, many people were appalled that he was able to get this deal. But just within the last few weeks, the FBI, after 10 years, has broken their silence on why Epstein got such a sweetheart deal. They claimed that they didn't think the witnesses would hold up in court. Now, the FBI has pulled some very shady dealings, especially in other cases with high-profile alleged sex abuse of children, mainly the Franklin scandal. You saw a lot of corruption within the FBI when you read the books by both John DeCamp and Nick Bryant. I'll let you guys read that information for yourselves, read those depositions for yourselves, and you decide. However, I may actually be a little bit more sympathetic to the FBI here. Why? Well, these girls were being investigated. A lot of them, their families had no idea that they were involved in this, and can you imagine the sordid details coming out in court? Not to mention many of them had priors, had been arrested for other things, were in trouble. That would have been all brought out during a jury trial, okay? And then the big kicker was, during this non-prosecution, they had levied a deal where I believe at least 30 of these victims were going to get financial compensation. After all, Epstein himself had already settled many lawsuits, again, with alleged underage victims. So the FBI thought to themselves, well, we'll get this small prosecution, but on top of that, these girls will eventually get some kind of financial compensation. They won't have to go through civil court. And, it's the best win they felt they could have had. Now, you can believe that or not. I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between. But the bottom line is that never happened. And that's why the lawsuit stands today. You see, right after he gets out, his lawyers, Alan Dershowitz and Kenneth Starr, start to say that they're not going to pay the victims. They start filing affidavits here, and there are no payouts for these victims. So now, today, we actually have set a date within the last couple weeks of when the trial against Jeffrey Epstein begins. And it's supposed to begin sometime in August. And the question is, whose names are going to be out there? How far is this going to go? We already know about the Clintons. We already know about British royalty. We know about Prince Andrew. Okay? There's going to be a lot more names mentioned. And another caveat to this is originally the lawyers for this young woman were trying to have Donald Trump be a character witness, but they believe they're going to be able to win the case without Donald Trump as a character witness. So this is definitely a case that we need to keep an eye on. After all, Jeffrey Epstein is out there, folks. He still owns all these things we're talking about. He has all this stuff. He's not in jail. He's walking around with beautiful young women today, and he's still worth a fortune. As always, folks, if you like this video, please share it on social media. And remember to go check out wearechange.org. It's only through your financial support that reports like this one are possible. Thank you very much.